especially the northern countries, they would have to decide for one side because America is not invaded. Because America, when the Beta tried to invade through the north, they completely annihilated Canada. Like they didn't give the Beta any chance of getting there, and that means most of Canada is gone. There is just like a huge crater and nuclear winter state. So it makes sense that some countries that were neutral would change to the NATO because they need the supplies, and they know, hey, if the Soviet Russia falls, we are next. So it is kind of a self-interest that we are aligned with this country. And even, I think, later on Russia is stated as part of NATO, or at least Soviet Russia. That can make sense because shortly before Russia is completely under the control of the Beta, Russia purchases Alaska from America. And that's why Soviet Russia moves from the east to America. So it would make sense, even if they don't like each other, that they would both be in the NATO later on.
Yeah.
Of course, not every country would make sense in that kind of way, like shown on the card, but I think some exceptions are allowed in the context of the world. The Vietnamese and Polish members of the East Germany army.
Yeah, that's actually quite correct that they are displayed there, because East Germany started as early as the 50s to accept Vietnamese people, especially of course from the communist north back then, and later from all of Vietnam, as guest workers. And these guest workers, they were simply trained in several jobs, and a lot of them stayed. That's why early on a huge, well not huge, but a sizable minority of Vietnamese people was established in East Germany and exists until today. And then we also have some Polish members. German and Polish history is quite intertwined in parts. If you think about it like that, half of Prussia was like 50% Polish, 50% German. And so the history of Poles in Germany, it even precedes the world wars. And a lot of people have perfectly integrated there, and most of them just carry a Slavic name as a family name to this day. But in any other way, they are pretty much 100% Germans and indistinguishable from other Germans, both culturally, linguistically, on pretty much every level.
I think all of the names are actually make sense, except Iristina. I think we didn't find that name as a real name, but maybe we're just not informed enough. So if you guys know where the name came from, feel free to tell us where it came from. You have Annette Hosenfeld, which is one character of the Schwarzesmarken, that has PTSD, but the main character goes like, what does a crazy person on the battlefield? She doesn't belong here, which is makes sense because PTSD was researched as an effect of the Vietnamese War, as far as I know.
Well, the Vietnamese War just spawned a very specific type of PTSD, and it came much more into focus.
But the fact is that it was much more researched because of that.
Yeah.
And the characters reacting to PTSD like, what is that shit? Actually makes sense because the research never really happened. It makes sense that it's not realized as a psychic sickness. So I like that part. So just a short overview of the names. I want to pronounce them in English. Theodor Eberbach, Theodor Eberbach, Iristina Bernhard, probably,
Yeah.
Annette Rosenfeld, Katja Waldheim, I stopped trying to pronounce them English, Gretel Jacqueline, Inkelt Pronikowski. If you can't pronounce that name, I don't blame you. You kind of have to live in this type of language territory to get these names right. Lise Hohenstein, Sylvia Krasinska, that is a name even I can't pronounce correctly.
They're worse.
Walter Kruger, very important, it's not Walter, it's Walter. Even the Japanese make a difference between Walter and Walter.
Right.
I just want to say it because there may be English people and that are Walter and not Walter. It's just a different kind of use like David and David. So just, Pham Thi Lan, the Vietnamese minority, Beatrix Bremer and Silke Steinhoff.
で、何か新しい話が聞けたか？どうしたい？
The thing is, this whole comrade, you know it from all the stereotypes about Soviet Russia and their communist allies. Comrade, that is in these socialist systems, the official and correct name, well, not name, but the correct way to address your superior in the military, and also the way that you are supposed to perceive your fellow countrymen. The thing is, comrade is also used in English for the way the Nazis talk to one another. But here's an interesting point. You have to distinct that. The English language just does not do that. The Nazis used the word Kamerad, which is close to comrade, of course, and Kamerad, it's a word that is not directly associated with them, but it was one that they strongly favored, while the socialists would call each other Genosse. Genosse also translates as comrade, but it is in German a different word for when the socialists address each other. But yeah, that was quite correct. And the next point was mostly the insignia that we were seeing throughout this episode. For example, you saw the West German Macs, they had an iron cross. That is correct. The West German Army, the Bundeswehr, to this very day they use the Iron Cross as a symbol, while the East German Army never did that. They had basically the same, just a slightly modified version of that symbol that the East German flag has in its center. That was their coat of arms. The weapon that is drawn, we only vaguely see the gun. But it seems to be a Makarov, that's another Russian pistol, and again that's quite genuine as equipment for the East German Army.
Of course there was much drama in it, but I think as a fantasy story, it's natural. It's nothing that is so extreme it doesn't make sense. And actually one of my friends was saying, yeah, well, the Stasi is kind of presented a bit extreme throughout the episode. But I didn't think it was so extreme. It actually looked it made sense in the context of the setting. We are in this war against an alien race that invades humanity, and the East Germans also fight against the West Germans because they don't want their help. So the West Germans are like, let's get together, we need to fight against this, but the East Germans are like, no, we are doing this our way.
Yeah.
So to me it kind of makes sense how brutal the Stasi is getting in this adaptation.
Well, yeah, the Stasi is not really shown in any way too extreme or anything, except of course for the end where they are like, let's topple the government.
貴様らシュタージこそ東ドイツを私物化しようとしている国民の敵なのかな。やれ。
シュトラーフェ。
The thing with a border is, yeah, it's quite accurate. They would shoot at you, and they would be a huge area where no one was allowed to even enter around the border back then. The thing that could be seen as slightly ahistorical is that they run through a forest. Back then at the border, most of the forest there was, they were just cut down so that they could have a better overview. But yeah, they would shoot at you, but if they could catch you, you would face up to 5 years of prison in East Germany for Republikflucht, basically trying to flee from the glorious Socialist Republic. And if you had some luck, West Germany would just buy you free, and then you could live there.
Well, with forests, the thing is maybe the resources they had, they put it more into the military, so maybe they didn't get to cut all of it down. But that's nitpicking. We don't really care so much about that part. The main character is supposed to be 5 years in prison. He actually only was 3 years in prison, but it makes sense. He's kind of the black sheep in this black sheep group. Like this is a good point to talk about the 666 Squadron, because they're kind of the black sheep group. They have the most dangerous mission of all. They have to get in and kill the laser betas, which interesting they call Laserjagd.
Yeah.
Which makes sense basically, because laser is the enemy and Jagd means hunt in German. So that sounds a bit like cheesy, but it makes sense in the because that's exactly what they are doing, and they're supposed to leave all comrades to die, and that also makes kind of sense why they're called Schwarzesmarken, because die schwarze Marken means the black tax, and that's where the name comes from. Black tags are given to the soldiers in this context that are close to dying, and it also has a double meaning because they leave all comrades that are fighting and dying. They leave alone because they have to finish their mission. So they get called a lot of bad names from their fellow comrades because they are the unit that doesn't help others. It also explains maybe why there are people that are not liked by society are put in that group, because they're more likely to die.
And no one would miss them.
Yes. Also, because of the war, of course, we are lacking people. And very important fact, because most people say, why is the most cast of the show female? Well, Muv-luv explains it like the first to die are men. And then they noticed we are lacking people. We have to get girls in there too. That's why there's more girls or women than men. Well, and of course, women are the ones to breed children, so it's more likely to send the man first. Even in Muv-luv Alternative with the Japanese, the age when you're becoming an adult is lowered to 16. So you're basically an adult with 16. And that's true for most countries in this world, which of course makes sense. You need to get the pilots out as soon as possible in this big war.
First off, Beversee is actually, it was a real Air Force base back then in East Germany. Nowadays I think it's just used for huge festivals and stuff like that. But yeah, that is quite correct.